Welcome back to Go For Side Effects. I'm your host, Kevin Simon. So the other day I was talking to Siannon Lee, which was a guest on here, I believe on my fourth or fifth episode. We had some interesting conversation about, a lawsuit with 3M plugs that's going to be ending soon. And then the CDC, and then also stuff about the DC circuit courts on anthrax. And there's a lot of other things that has to do with a claim of life that deals with the vaccines for all the veterans out there. And to me, it's very interesting. I want to bring her back onto this podcast, and I want to welcome her in. Welcome back to Go For Side Effects. I'm glad you're back.
Yes, nice to be back. Thank you for having me.
Hey, we have a lot to talk about. A lot.
That we do. We absolutely do. So cool. So let's catch up.
All right, let's catch up. The red meat is a great idea, by the way. Anybody likes deer meat, steaks, I suggest that every day.
Well, you're looking good. I'm telling you what, I can see in your face has got some more glow to it. And I should go back and look at our other taping to see as far as it, because it fills in the lines on your face and that kind of thing. When you're older, I'm telling you, it makes you look way younger.
Well, let's leave the old part out.
Hey, we're not old, okay?
That's true. That's very true. It was kind of funny though, if you think about it. When we were about 20, we thought 50 was old. Now we're 50. No, we ain't old.
Well, it's a lot of that is mindset, and we saw our parents and what their mindset was at that age, and it's like they kind of act old, but they also felt old, and they took after what their parents, what they saw their parents. So the generations have been just progressively much different, over the years. And yeah, I certainly don't think I'm anywhere. I don't act anything like my mother did at 40 years old. I don't look anything like my mother did at 40 years old. Thank God. I don't even look like her when she was 20 years old, but
hey, I can tell you, my dad can outwork me, and he's 76 years old. And wow. My mom, man, they still going. They're doing great. And plus, she listens to this podcast. My mom looks wonderful.
Yeah.
And all right, let's get into this. I want to get into something that I've done some research on: vaccines. I really want to get into this first because I found something interesting. And yes, we are going to get in Afghanistan and Iraq. We're going to get into this, but the vaccines.
Should we tell them who I am and how
yes, yes. So I apologize. Go ahead.
Because some people may not have seen our first episode together. So my name is Siannon Lee, and I'm a Gulf War veteran and turned transformational holistic health coach. I had suffered from Gulf War illness 22 years ago. We don't even know what it is anymore, but
right.
But we all kind of know, right? And some people still suffer from it today. Actually, hundreds of thousands of people still suffer from it today. I was blessed and fortunate enough to really just pursue the the alleviation and the relief of those symptoms through alternative means. And so I've been doing that offline for the last 20 years, not just helping, veterans that have suffered the same, but also regular people from, babies, newborn babies to 90-year-olds with different chronic health disease and illnesses. So, but when it comes to Gulf War illness, that actually has been officially termed now, that we know that a lot of those started from the vaccinations, from the inoculations that we were given during that time, because people that didn't go overseas still have had issues, have had chronic health issues for a very long time. And when you inject someone with anthrax, that will happen because you can't build an immunity to anthrax no more than you can build an immunity to fluoride or any other toxic chemical. The only thing you can do is get that crap out of your system. And it doesn't happen on its own when your liver is so overwhelmed with keeping up with the sugar that you're, the sugar high that you're on all day long. It can't do anything else but deal with that. So forget about, cleansing your cells. And there's so much malnutrition and disinformation and misinformation about nutrition. People and they've been taken for a ride for the past 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever it's been, on what is actually, optimal performance diet for a human. And that varies a little bit, but not too much in general. It's, what's your environment and what have you been exposing yourself to, that is the variation. So
well, that's true.
So
But I found something else very interesting.
okay.
So it isn't really the vaccine, it's more the pill we took. I can't even say, I'll try to say the name. I hope you can correct me. Pyrid, here, I'll spell it. PYRIDOSTIGMINE.
Okay.
That's the really long one that I talked about in one of the very beginnings. Bromide.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know that in the CDC, in their guidelines, that talks about this particular medicine that we took over there, one of the side effects is neuropathy, delayed neuropathy.
Mm-hmm. I have heard of that product. I can't exactly spell it out or pronounce it out either, unless it's right in front of my face.
Right.
But I have heard of it, and I was aware of that as well. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is one of the contributing factors as well. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, along with anthrax, but back in 2000, it's kind of what the vaccines are doing now. They come out, they're supposed to be FDA approved, but when they first use it, which what a lot of people don't know is usually you use it on your military first.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was sitting there, I was doing a little bit of investigation, and with a lot of help from a really good friend of mine, is back in 2003, a young man at that time, Russell J. Gould,
Mm-hmm.
he actually realized that after the, 2000 election with George Bush and the Hanging Chads,
Yep.
that the post office did not renew their corporation status.
That's correct.
And I would like for us to get into that a little bit. And
Absolutely.
I would like to get your take on that part and kind of explain that area of people. And then I got some more to add to it.
Okay. Yeah, that is a lot of people are not familiar with Russell J. Gould, who is the commander in chief of the world. He is the postmaster general of the world. And they don't really understand why and who he is and what he did and why it was so important to us. And I didn't even know myself up until about 6 years ago is when I learned about it. And it was because of an issue that I had that stemmed from the family courts. And because I was a soldier, I was military, and I was, under the belief that, everything that we've been taught, is, that's our country and we stand for that and that kind of thing. So, so the post office neglected to do that. Russell J. Gould and David Wynn-Miller, who was his partner at the time, they stopped and corrected. Now, David Wynn-Miller, you will find a lot of information about him on YouTube. He created a language that is 100% written in fact, which means it means the same both going forward and backwards. You can write it both ways. It means the same exact thing, because the English language is technically, I say like Babylonian language. It's in the sense that there's so many words that have more than one meaning. So if I say to you, Kevin, is it a fact that 2 plus 2 equals 4, your answer to me is
Yeah.
yes, right? Well, but I say, well, Kevin, if I tell you that I mean TOO plus TWO equals FOR, is that
No.
still a fact? No.
No.
So the key there is it's who's saying the words and what their definition of the words is. And that changes on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, situation by situation timeline. So when you're standing in a courtroom, which is a foreign vessel in dry dock, in what you think is the United States territory, when the United States is a corporation, and I think most people understand that, they recognize that it's a corporation, they see that it's run like a corporation, they understand the CEO, but what they don't understand is what is, or who is the, who are the assets, what are the assets, right? And so the military are all under that would have been corporation of the United States of America. Well, that corporation has been dissolved since the third and final bankruptcy in 1999. And so when there was that very important moment with the post office, people don't also understand that the post office runs the world.
Oh, yeah.
That the post office runs the world. So every single person, and person, if you look up the definition, a person is an organization or a company or corporation. So same as individual. So every person with that, with a name, which you have your proper name and then you have your surname. And the surname was developed back in the 1300s and through Rome. And this was how they started to monetize the people. And so they put those names together when you're born and you, or have a baby and you bring them into the hospital to have them. The hospital gives you documents. Yeah, well, they give you the papers to get the birth certificate,
right?
Because the certificate comes from where? The nearest county or city, wherever it was that the child was born, right? So with that, you fill that out. Only the mother, by the way, technically needs to sign that. Now, what is the reason for that, right? So another bit of information people don't know is that when you're married, so the state owns the husband. And if you think about the terminology, the husbandry, the state owns the husband, the woman is the property of the husbands still to this day. I don't care, you know, you can talk about women's rights, and of course I'm all for that, right?
Right.
But it is what it is, and it hasn't changed ever. The woman is the property of the husband, and the kids are also, except that because the husband belongs to the state. If you read the back of the marriage certificate, it says the product of the marriage belongs to the state, which means your children belong to the state. That was a very painful lesson that I had to learn, and still trying to rectify that after 6 years. Right. But I do believe that through Russell J. Gold and the quantum construct that we can get a resolution to that problem, because he's very aware of it. He knows what's going on. There's just other things that need to be addressed, right, such as, you know, military being forced to take vaccinations against their will.
Well, that actually brings to one of the statements that I found out, that you can literally, when you could go on base to the post office or to the postmaster general that's on base. Mm-hmm. You can literally sign up not to take the vaccine.
That's correct.
Because of the 2003 law. Yes. And so since they're no longer a corporation, the military actually owns it.
That's right.
The military personnel.
That's right.
Not the officers.
Correct. and they're really under what it means is all the contracts are null and void.
Right.
So, because when there's a contract that's written, everything is contract. And if there's a contract that's written and it's fraudulent on its face, then it's void, what they call void ab initio, which is from its inception. Technically, we don't use their terminology because then we're playing legalese, which is the language that they speak. You could literally go into a courtroom and be under a disability because of the language. And
Right.
even though you read and you recognize what you think is English, it's not English. It is a form of English that you think you understand, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's what gets you in trouble. And the only reason that you're there is for them to harvest your fund, which is created when you get that birth certificate. That's why certificates are made, okay? So you hand in the documents of birth, the state creates a birth certificate, which is, I was in supply, right, in the Navy, and I worked worldwide. And so what do you do in supply? You take inventory of your assets, right? And so when you get that birth certificate, there's two different dates on it, not really on the birth certificate, but there's two dates involved. The date that you're actually birthed, and then there's a date that you're born. And that's when the birth certificate is created. And at the same time, they create a trust in your name. And then that trust sits in the treasury, basically, as use for your, when you grow, as you grow up. And if you never claim your person, you never claim your body, basically, then you are a ward of the state, which means the state owns you and can say where you go, what you do, what your privileges are, and what they're not.
Right. And this is another good point. In 2004, the DC Circuit Courts filed that anthrax can no longer be mandated. Like in 1998, they mandated for the veterans to take them if you're going overseas.
Yeah.
In 2004, DC Circuit Courts. Now, it doesn't matter what political side you're on. You're in DC, you know what political side they're on.
Right.
They knew that this was unlawful.
Absolutely.
And so they stopped it. But they say it was like mandated in 1998. I remember being mandated in 1990.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And that's the thing I don't understand. And, I can't find anywhere where the FDA started to approve. I want to say it was back in the 1995 is when they approved the anthrax shot. Mm-hmm. But from 90 to 95, if you really think about it, what changes did they have to make? We were the guinea pigs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like Vietnam, World War II, World War I. I mean, the Korean War, everybody went through similar things as we did. And they're still going through similar things.
Yeah.
And so I was, if people don't trust what I or you or anybody says, go look this stuff up yourself.
Yeah.
The information's out there. Do your homework.
Absolutely.
Don't trust.
Don't take our word. Go find out.
That's right.
Do your own homework. We're cluing you into something that we've both found to be true. And, that's something that, when I started my podcast, that was my opening line. Like, hey, I had teachers, preachers, parents and the like that all, taught me stuff that wasn't correct. And I don't think it's because necessarily that they meant to. Some of them might have known, but I think the majority, they didn't know. They didn't know what they didn't know. So they pass on that inerrant knowledge. And until you find out something different, then that's what you are. That's what you're the belief of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so when I kept getting my butt handed to me every time I walked into a family courtroom, and I was like, hey, like, I'm a veteran, like, hello, I served so you could stand there and say something, you know what I mean? Like, be free and say something to me. It doesn't work that way. They don't care, number one. you are expendable to them. Number two, you're there to do the job that they want you to do. And it's to protect their assets internationally. But, what does that mean? Being over in Vietnam, I mean, you can talk to some of those guys and know, a lot of them are jaded. They're not, they weren't happy about why they were there when they actually, they found out the real reason.
Right, exactly. And I think the part that really burns my ass, and I'm going to say it, this does burn my ass, is what's going on in Afghanistan. And it does, because this happened in Iraq. And what a lot of people, there's people who don't know much about Desert Storm. They don't know what happened after we left.
Right.
Okay. We left them people there to die. We did. They were gassed by Saddam. I know it. You know it. The military knows it. Everybody who was there knows what happened. Right. This is no different what's going on today, what's going on then. And that needs to be talked about, because there's not an end date to the Gulf War, people. There's not. The end date is still going on. Yeah. To me, the end date will be August the 31st, 2021. You mark my words on this, because that's when we pull out, leaving our own people behind and the people who helped us. And I just think that's tragedy. I mean, this is not why I served.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to a lot of veterans out there that, I mean, they are fired up over this. And I'm pretty passionate about the military. I mean, I love the military.
As they should be. Yeah, I do too.
Right.
And they should be. And I agree. And like you said, this isn't the first time that this has been going on. And, unless we do something about it, and I honestly think that, as you said, as us being guinea pigs, it's part of the reason that they approve those things. If anyone was going to stand up and fight, for the country, it would be the veterans, right?
That's right.
And that are our age, above us and below us, that kind of thing. So, to put them in a position of weakness, physical weakness or mental weakness, puts them at an advantage, right?
Yes, it does. It really truly does.
And that is why I do what I do, because it's so important. The mental, and it starts with the mental, and that's my tagline is your wellness is 100% mental. It starts up here. And you've got to, it's so easy for them to take you and put you into a survival mode very fast.
Right.
Shock and awe, and nothing really even has to happen, but they just tell you that it happens because you don't know. And your body responds to that shock and awe, to that trauma, to that whatever it is, in a fight or flight manner. It just does. It's a natural stress response. So that's why for the veterans to be healthy is, to me, one of the most important things that I do, jobs that I have, is to make them ready for whatever would be coming, whatever could come at us, because we were employed to defend the country from, terrorists, both foreign and domestic.
Right. We're about to hit that right now, because a lot of people have social media. There's TikTok, there's Facebook, there's YouTube. I mean, everything, Instagram. I mean, everything out there right now is social media. And this is how words get out. So I happened to listen to a young Army lady that, I don't know if you got that message. I wanted you to hear what she had to say. And they were talking, she literally talked about, there was a lady who was really genuinely concerned, and she was worried. This civilian was worried about what the state of our country is going through on both sides of the aisle. And she wants to know who's going to step up. It's our military's job to step up what's going on in Afghanistan how are we going to help? How are we going to do this? I mean, we all know that what's going on in this world isn't right. There's something not right out there.
Right.
And so this Army active duty personnel, which I don't know how she'll have a job after all this, and I want to see to it she doesn't, is that she gets on there and starts explaining to them that martial law, that they can go in, declare it at any time, blah, blah, blah. And if she tells you to go into your house and you don't do it, she can basically kill you. Your constitutional rights are swept out the door. That's a bunch of baloney. Number one, our troops are never supposed to be used on our soil. That's why we have National Guard.
Right.
That's really what they're there for.
Mm.
But the other line is there's a lot more veterans than there are her. And there's a lot more active military that does not think like she does. And that kind of bit me right in the butt. That really ticked me off after I saw that. But you're not going to change them type of people's mentality. The only thing that you can do is when these people get out, teach them the right from wrong. I mean, teach them about God, teach them about everything. And I mean, understand, if you put God, to me, if you put God first and then you put yourself, and then everything falls into line. But we're not teaching that. We're sending these guys home with nothing.
Right.
And I had a customer that I wish I would have told you this earlier when we talked the other day, but I had a customer tell me something that I never realized. He said, even if you get out of the military, he goes, every service member is going to have PTSD. And I looked down and said, what are you talking about? He goes, because they build you up to something and you get out, you're nothing. You don't know how to cope with society. I was like, that's a great comment.
Yeah.
And I hope a lot of spouses and friends and family kind of take that one to heart. Is when they get out, I keep always saying, I recommend going to a counselor as soon as you get out. That's the first thing, just to get back. And that's what we need to concentrate on, and detoxing. We need to detox these guys.
Absolutely.
And start making them know their rights. The UCMJ does not tell you have to take a vaccine. I heard people say that to me. Well, the UCMJ tells you this, and this. Let me tell you, the UCMJ does not specifically say you have to harm your body.
Right.
And if anybody wants to get the vaccine, by all means, go ahead. If they want to, I have no problem with that. Yeah. It's your choice.
It's your choice. It's your body. I mean,
That's
if
right.
you're doing something experimental in your body, you might want to know exactly what it is. Even if you can't pronounce it, you might want to know how it affects your body. What is it actually doing? And on a short-term basis, that's one thing, but on a long-term basis, that's another. And, people just, they play, chemistry set with their body, and the body's super resilient, but at the same time, I mean, we're into like nano and pico level physics, on the body, and people don't know what the long-term effect of that is. And remember last time we talked about epigenetics, and I think, when you hear a term like RMNA, you understand that that is having a direct modification of your DNA and your RNA. So that makes you a different person than you were. So when you're putting this foreign body, whatever it may be, into your body, your body is on duty to do its job, which is to protect you from those things. And it can be overstimulated, obviously, which would, as in your immune system can be overstimulated, you can burn out, your natural killer cells, kind of like in the sense of diabetics, in that sense that the cells just don't respond anymore, right? Because they're so inundated with something to deal with all the time. So, you're changing who you are, and they are experimental. And even though, the FDA did approve that, they also approved cigarettes many years ago. You would walk into a doctor's office and they'd be putting out their cigarettes.
Right. And barbershops.
Right. Yeah. And doctors recommended smoking, and there's 3,000 to 5,000 chemicals in each cigarette, including, formaldehyde, embalming fluid. That's kind of,
right.
It kind of speaks for itself, right? But yet people still smoke. And let me tell you, I was a big smoker in the military. So, but I've been quit for way longer than I was ever smoked or ever in. But at the same time, again, you don't know what you don't know until you know. And right. So, you take it from people that have learned from their experiences, and that's, that's where I'm at. I'm just telling people, hey, this was my experience. This is what I've learned. And you don't own your body. Unfortunately, the Constitution, a lot of people will say constitutional rights, and you need to understand that the Constitution was put in place and enacted to limit the government. So the Bill of Rights is what actually gives you rights, where the Constitution limits their power. But at the same time, when the corporation is dissolved, none of those things exist. And also, if it did exist, when it comes to a contract, unless your name is specifically on that contract and you are a party to it, still doesn't apply to you.
Right. And on top of that is we need to get them to the 3M plug, the plugs, earplugs.
Yeah.
And because that's coming up real soon, the end of it. So yeah, I want you to talk about that.
Okay, so they're shutting down, in case people weren't aware of the 3M case. That was a lawsuit, number one, that the government had started against 3M for the combat earplugs, the little yellow and green earplugs that were pretty much standard issue from at least 2003 to 2015. I've heard that they still use them. Why, I don't know. Right. But those are the timelines for qualification for what's not a class action lawsuit, as most people have believed. So the government got $9.1 million from 3M after they sued them for. There were whistleblowers in the company basically that came forward and said, hey, they covered up, that they were faulty design. They knew they were a faulty design, and they covered it up. Government went after them, sued them, got $9.1 million. None of the service members saw that.
Right.
So, but ever, since the government won, it was kind of a rubber stamp for the service members that have had any kind of tinnitus and or hearing loss in relation to their military service and their time in service, that you could put in your own claim against 3M. And so back in April, and some people have probably seen some, commercials, whatever, of course, the lawyers put those out. There's different lawyer groups that are bringing those cases forward, but it's not under a class action lawsuit. It's under a mass tort litigation, which is a little bit different because each person is evaluated on their own specific diagnosis, their own specific hearing loss and what have you. So they're looking at anywhere from, for tinnitus, payouts could be anywhere from 30 to 50,000 per person. And for hearing loss, total hearing loss or any kind of hearing loss, it is anywhere from 75 to 200,000. So yeah, it's going to take some time to go through all those claims. However, and they are, like I said, they're shutting it down. I believe it's September 9th is they're closing it down. So so that's interesting. So anybody out there that has, would qualify for those things, that's pretty much it. You served from 2003 to 2015. You remember getting those earplugs, you've suffered hearing loss or tinnitus, you qualify.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it is. And there's some other cases out there for people that have direct contact with IEDs, and also the fire foam, which obviously is used to put out the fires.
Right.
But the big one right now is the 3M push, because they are closing it down. And there were, what they estimated was over 2 million people that were potentially affected by that. And trust me when I say there's not 2 million people that have put their claims in. So, but yeah, so I have a web page that they can hit and drop their information. I can get back in touch with them and get them connected with the attorneys that we're working with. We're working with a veteran-owned company, run by veterans, owned by veterans, and so we're making sure that our guys are taken care of.
Give the email.
Yeah. So the website's at toughmothers.world, and there's just an opt-in form, and they can, if they think that they qualify, they can fill it out. We'll get back in touch with them and get things set up and get rolling. And you want to get it rolling fast, because like I said, I mean, it's already, August 30th. So, we literally have only a couple weeks left before they shut it down.
Right. I need to get this up on the website, and I also need to get it up on our Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So.
Yeah. And I know us Gulf War vets don't qualify, but we're going to help any vet we can. That's the key.
Yeah.
I don't really remember wearing earplugs at all. I don't. Well, in my job, you couldn't, because you had to hear every command sending rigs over, so you couldn't really listen. And so them guys kind of had a lot of fun with us while we're there. It was loud, but how I lost my hearing is our captain had a jet from the Independence fly, and he decided to fly real low, and it burst the sound barrier.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it put me on the ground. I was like, what the heck was that?
Wow, that's massive.
Well, he thought it was funny. It was funny after I realized what it was, but back then it wasn't funny.
Right. Yeah, mine was just over time. I do remember, I think that we had the same earplugs, similar earplugs. And it was just high powered airplanes, being on the flight deck, just over time, it does start to, it gets to you, but, it's slight tinnitus for me. It comes and goes depending, and, but it's affected a lot of people. And so I do hope that, that the people that can qualify, even if you don't think, the kicker is this, even if you think that you don't qualify, or you go, oh, it's not really bad. So for like myself, well, it comes and goes, whatever, but it's there and it will get worse. And the thing is, they do a hearing test when you go into the military, they also do it when you go out of the military, but they won't tell you if you've suffered hearing loss.
Right.
Only if you go in, you're going into them, you're like, I'm having some problems hearing, and you go in for that reason, then they'll tell you, of course, what your test results are. But if you're not going in for that reason, they're not telling you.
Oh yeah. Well, I know a lot of Vietnam vets that now are going and they're signing up and they're getting their free hearing aids. And I think the VA is doing right by them on that. I was really impressed with our area on part of the VA, as far as getting all the veterans out here that suffer hearing loss and tinnitus. They're doing good in the Houston area right now.
Well, that's good. I hope they're doing that all over the place.
Yeah, they're not doing it all over.
No, unfortunately, they're probably not. They're probably not doing that. So September 9th, just make sure you get your stuff in, and then the other thing, we were talking about with Russell, I want to make sure that people understand if they are being forced or being threatened that are active duty military, they need to understand. So there's two paradigms that are basically running right now. So what's considered fiction and then fact. So Russell runs the quantum construct, which is a fact. And so the language is what actually turns you into a fact. And by when you see it, it's quantum parse syntax language or quantum language. And so the punctuation is what makes the difference and how you say it, right? So, but the soldiers, the active duty are able to go also if they're concerned about any backlash or not wanting to, if they're being forced and they really don't want to take those backs, and they're saying, and they don't want to be, transferred out.
Right.
But they're, so they can get in under the, in the quantum field. Russell has put out 2 videos in the last 2 weeks in regards to that. And there's been a lot of positive response from the postmasters on the base.
Right. And matter of fact, it's called claimoflife.com. You can go there and you can fill it out and bring it in. Yes.
Well, for the claimoflife.com, you go through the application for that. There's, some processes that have to go through Russell so that he signs off on your claim of the life so that it's absolutely legit. Because if you try to go through any other channel,
right,
they don't have authorization.
Right.
They are void authorization. So Russell J. Gould, he's the real deal. Trust me, I know, because I've done the other ones.
Right.
and paid for that severely as well. So, but knowing that Russell is, he is the real deal. He's gone through a lot to provide this this quantum construct so that because he did disqualify the whole birth certificate system as well. So that system technically does not, it really doesn't exist on paper legitimately. However, understand that the fiction has to run, and not enough people know, right? And too many people have been brainwashed or just not informed, right? About how things run. And so you kind of get glimpses here and there. They always show you in little different ways through Hollywood and TV shows and this and that. But unless you really step in some crap and you have to find out on your own, it doesn't, there's just these little pieces of the puzzle all over the place, and it's not cohesive. But if you go to, I always have people start, and I don't know if this is what you ended up doing as I recommended to you. I have people go to War Castles on YouTube, and War Castles has a very, they carry a lot of information with David Windmiller and the language and how the language works. So there's a lot of knowledge there, but I have them specifically go look for Sergeant Horton, the episode of Sergeant Horton on War Castles in YouTube, because Sergeant Horton obviously was a military guy, and he was a SEAL guy. And so he talks our language, and he explains very well exactly how things happened the way they happen.
Right.
So I at least start the military people there so they have a better understanding. And then once they've listened to Sergeant Horton, then you can go to thelastflagstanding.com, and that will bring you to For the Claim of the Life. Russell J. Gould also has his The Last Flag Standing is a documentary, and it tells his story of how all this happened, about the hanging chads and everything that transpired and what he's been through, to secure that flag. And, I mean, the man was starved for like 90 days, 100 and something, like, I mean, literally starved, naked, freezing. I mean, so, literally tortured, and didn't give up the flag, didn't give up anything. So we are able to have that freedom to move our vessel, which is what our body is a vessel, freely out in the world, so to speak, and not get any, and not have to be told by somebody, and not be a ward of the state, and not, any of those things. And you have to understand, when you deal with these actors and agencies out in the world, they're doing their job. You ever know that you're following the law, but the guy that's like giving you a ticket or something,
Right.
doesn't matter.
Right.
Go work it out. That's what they do. Go work it out in the courthouse. Yeah. Tell it to the judge, right?
Right.
Because they're just doing their job. So they write you there because that's their quota, and that's what they're doing. And you're going to the courthouse. And as soon as you step in the courthouse, it's like literally you could have just stepped on an enemy ship in China, because you are a stowaway. You're a foreigner. The judge is a foreign agent. The lawyers are foreign agents. They work technically for the bar, which is a British accredited registry, if you want to know what that means. And technically their first oath is to the court, and then it's to you. So their job is to make money for the court first, and maybe they'll do something for you if
I gave them a lot of money in tickets.
Man, I've given them a whole lot of money,
Right.
a whole lot of money, and it didn't matter. They will drain you, and that's really what they want to do, is they want to drain you. And because you don't understand what's going on, you're just like, okay, so I'm emotionally, and there is such a thing called legal abuse syndrome. Actually, it was a term that's coined, and it causes a type of what's called chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's ongoing, or I'm sorry, complex. It's complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So it's a little bit different than military PTSD, which tends to be like an event. And but this is a sequence of events, and they keep taking you through it. And it causes, like, I don't know what kind of PTSD you might have had, but for me, we were just talking about this the other day. If a helicopter flies overhead, I get a little bit anxious. I don't know why. I just do, right? It's just there. But so there's kind of those little things. But with that, it's because it was related to my child, it was like, well, you see a child that looks like your child, or could look like your child, or you see a book that you used to read, and like you be in Walmart and just like lose it for no reason, And so, but there's a problem with that, in that the court uses it against you. And there's whole groups out there of veterans where the court uses your military service against you, because they say with the PTSD that you have.
That's very true. As a matter of fact, I watched the guy's YouTube video about that everything was taken from him because he had PTSD, but he couldn't understand because he didn't do anything wrong, but it's because of PTSD.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think that a lot of people wouldn't think, because you should be covered under the HIPAA law.
Right.
But when you're dealing with government entities, they literally have all your information everywhere you go, except for when you file a claim. That's the thing I haven't understood yet. Other entities has everything you have.
Right.
And so, I mean, while I walk into any office, it around there, the first thing they say is, are you having any mental issues? And I'm just like, I don't have PTSD. They're like, well, you're taking this. Well, that's for neuropathy. And they're just like, oh, okay. So, I mean, it's amazing how they know it.
Yeah. And so you got to be really careful with using that. I mean, I get it. It's a catch-22, because for some people it can be seriously debilitating, as in like there's so much around them, and it's just there, all the time. So they can't really focus on things or, get distracted, whatever it is. But they will use it against you.
Oh yeah.
If they can, and they're in a position to use it against you, they'll use it against you.
Yeah, I forgot what state it was, but luckily I forgot what state it was. It was back in 2009 or 2010, where a military guy got home, he had PTSD, but the federal government thought he was so bad off, they were going to come to his home and take every bit of weapons out. But the local sheriff completely surrounded the guy's house to not allow the federal government to take his weapons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that in Texas?
No, I want to say it was in Tennessee. I want to say it was Tennessee or somewhere up there like that.
Wow.
And I'll get you that information. I'll find it, but that was a great story.
Yeah, I would expect it in Texas, not so much Tennessee, but
yeah, no, right. But I think it was Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. It was a county.
But nice to hear. You never know. I mean, there's a lot of counties in Tennessee that, you don't know. And the sheriffs, and there's counties in Florida, where the sheriffs are will take control like that. And so, and they can.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very much well they can. And they should. That's exactly what should happen.
Exactly.
So we need to get this country turned around. We need to get people out there being more positive, and just be kinder to each other.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, when you mentioned that girl's video, that was pretty shocking. And I have to say that I like what the guy had to say in response to her.
Right. I did too.
And she's very young. And again, she doesn't know what she doesn't know. And technically, when it comes to, martial law, we technically have been in martial law for a long time. I mean, really since 1933, if you want to be really technical, because they've never lifted it since the first quote unquote stock market crash, right?
Right.
But there have been other martial law declarations since then. And I think the most recent was, I want to say it was like 2018 or 2019, something like that. So technically we still are. You can look at the, what people don't know is the flag, and what's on the flagpole dictates what's going on in the world. So when you see things, you'll notice a lot on the TV, they don't show you what's at the top of the flagpole, right? They just show you the flag, and usually the yellow fringe, which means you're in war. They are in war, right? But it's a different kind of war. People don't get it. So, and it's not where the military are going up and down on the streets right yet. And if it was, as you said, it's probably going to be more like the UN, right? Because they know that the American soldiers are not likely to turn a firearm on an American citizen.
Right, exactly. And that's when she brought that up. I mean, I got so mad. I was ready to throw my phone over the house. I was so mad. I was like, how could you tell a civilian that? I mean,
right.
And I hope everybody out there listening that has never been in the military, but the military does not think like that one soldier. And there's probably about a handful of them, but there's a lot more of us out there.
Right.
And so I'm glad we got to have a good conversation about all this, and I got to vent.
Yeah, me too. And I really appreciate the platform to be able to, let the veterans know about the 3M case going down, and the other cases that are out there. Really important that, if you're suffering from some of those things, take advantage of that, because it doesn't come around often, and you deserve to be compensated for the injury. And when it comes down to everything and anything, everything is based on injury.
Right.
It literally is. Everything is based on injury.
Give them your website again, their email.
Yeah, so the website to opt in at is toughmothers.world. It's TOUGH mothers, MOTHERS .world, WORLD. So, yeah, and then just leave your information and we'll get back. We'll have a conversation, get you qualified, pre-qualified, and get you rolling in. And just like I said, do it quickly because it's, you know, how bad do you think 3M wants to, how bad do you think they want to close this down?
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
quickly.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah. I mean, you can't blame them.
back in April, they gave 3 veterans a total, I think it was like $7.1 million.
Wow.
Right.
That's
So that's a big chunk of change, right?
That's what I was just about to say.
And if you can't, you know, even if it takes another year to close all that out.
What's a year?
What's a year? If you didn't even know about it, you'd be dealing with it for the rest of your life anyways, letting it get worse and getting nothing for it.
Right. And I'll also get your website up on my website. I'll give them a place where they can, underneath the video,
Yeah.
will they be able to
Click right to it.
click,
Yeah.
click right to it.
Yeah. And so it's 2003 to 2015, get you qualified. You have tinnitus, hearing loss. That gets you in the door. That's all you need. So
That's awesome.
yeah. And it's no cost, just so people know, it's no cost to you. It's a contingency basis, of course. So if you don't get anything, then you don't pay anything. And also, if you already have disability, if you have a rating, a disabled rating for hearing loss or tinnitus, it doesn't affect that either. That's not going to change. You know, even if you're going to get a higher rating or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Those are 2 different things, right? So 3M is a third party corporation, has nothing to do with the VA and what you're getting for your disability. So that is literally money that is non-taxable income.
Right. And we'll let everybody know that this is not going to be the last time you're going to be on. Anytime you get information, she will contact me and we'll get her right on here.
Absolutely. Appreciate
it.
you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and I really appreciate you.
Anytime. Thank you. Thank you, Siannon Lee, for coming on the podcast. I want to announce that we set up a website at gulfwarsideeffects.wordpress.com. On our website, you can access all of our social media, streaming platforms, and stay up to date with the latest episodes. If you have any questions, stories you would like to share, or just want to talk, email me at kevinsimon@gulfwarsideeffects.com. If you would like to donate to the veterans and help the podcast grow, please click the link in the description. Each donation would help the show continue to connect and educate veterans around the world and go back to the veterans in the community suffering from PTSD and Gulf War illnesses. Thank you for all your support.